Okay, so we learned what expressions were and we practiced kind of going between English and algebra a little bit. Now we're going to move on dealing with expressions more and this time evaluating expressions. And just as a reminder, I said that in all of chapter 1, we're dealing with expressions, and expressions can be simplified, and sometimes that simplifying involves evaluating. Now, evaluating is different than solving. Solving is going to get you down to something like x equals 3. That is a solution, right? Evaluating is still in line with simplifying because we're still in the world of expressions, not in the world of equations. So as a reminder of where we're going and a little context, chapter 2 is all about equations and solving equations, whereas chapter 1 is all about expressions. So 1.5 is about evaluating expressions, and to evaluate an expression, what you do is you replace the variable with a specified number. So it's given to you in the textbook or in the notes or whatever, and you're going to then do the math to simplify the expression. So the key thing with this one, and it seems silly, I'm going to switch colors and put some red around it. So when you replace a variable with a number, sub in with brackets. Now, it seems like a silly thing, and oftentimes I don't sort of stamp my foot down and say, do it my way, because there are multiple ways to get to the right answer. But in all honesty, and knowing where this goes, you can save yourself a world of frustration with this one little thing. And I guess the pitfall is that you can get by without subbing in with brackets until things get harder. And then you get really turned around. So with these ones, I'm going to practice all the good habits and hopefully instill some of those in you. But we're all human and we will do what we want to do in the end anyway. So do remember the subbing in with brackets, and I'll try and be a good person and show you my good habits that I always have to work on. Okay, so in this one, we have an expression of y minus x, and we are given what x equals and what y equals. And so that's what allows us to evaluate these. So I'm going to rewrite this, subbing in where I see a y, a 7, and I subbed it in with brackets just to make it confusing for now, but trust me, it works in the end. And I'm going to subtract x, but instead of x, I'm writing in a 6. And so I've replaced the letters with the numbers, and these brackets give me a place to fill in the blanks, if you will. And so now I have 7 minus 6, and my answer, I don't need all the brackets around it for that, is 1. So the same thing with this, and I had a student actually suggest to me it made more sense to them if you put in the brackets and then filled them in. So we have two variables, and those variables are each going to have a number that we know what they are, and you're going to fill those into the bracket. So that's a 6 and a 7. And again, in this one, I know the brackets don't make any sense or aren't needed to be there, but it can make things better in the long run. And so with this one, if I multiply 30 by 7, I get 210. In these ones, you can give them a try. I'm going to do them somewhat quietly here. You can check your answers as you go. All right, so we're going to move on doing more complicated evaluation or evaluating expressions. And we have a bit of a key on these ones. So we have more going on, and we're supposed to remember, it says in the notes here, order of operations or BEDMAS. So that still fits when we evaluate these things. So I'm going to rewrite the expression with a bracket where I want to sub in a value. And then I can just evaluate it. So I'd start with the exponents. That would be 4 times 9 plus 2. So I'd have 36 plus 2 for a 38. They're a little squishy in here. Sorry about the spacing. Okay, so then we'd have B. I'm making it wild with all the brackets. I'd have a 4 plus 5. And I know that's a lot of brackets. Trust me, we're developing good habits. And we get 45 on that one. I'd have to do the exponents first, and then I'd have to do the brackets. All right, no big deal other than probably too many brackets for your tastes. If I'm ever going too fast in class, throw something in the chat to tell me to slow down. But we're going to move on. Same thing, but this time there's some negatives. And so we're going to continue to follow my advice of subbing in with brackets. And in evaluating these, all we do is follow the instructions. So we've got a 6 times C, and C is a -5, and then over E, which is a 3. And I dutifully subbed in with brackets everywhere, and I get -30 on top divided by 3. And I get -10 as my answer. A couple more of these ones. Take your time. It's easy to miscopy something, especially while I'm talking and you're trying to work and think. And I'm trying to talk while I do it too. I'd have to deal with this as a grouping sign and deal with everything on the top first. And ultimately I get -7. Continue on. The first step is really just about copying. So go slow, go carefully. Then you get to the end on that one. So the flip side of the page here says you can use your calculator on these. If you remember when we did these before, with the order of operations and the grouping signs, you had to do that thinking for your calculator. And so I would suggest writing it out and kind of doing a combination of calculator and doing it by hand. So I'll do parts of it on my calculator, but then keep writing equivalent expressions so that I don't lose track of things as I go. So calculators are great. I sometimes don't trust them entirely. And so, yeah, you can kind of use a mix of both, which is usually what I do. So 2 times x, which is a +2. And you get -2/5 as an answer. It's totally possible to make copying errors, and if that's your mistake, just be kind to yourself and don't worry about it, because it happens to the best of us. I'm sure that means I'll do a mistake like that in the next couple minutes. Oh, and here maybe I've done it. 3x, and x is, yep, see, I did it. Going too fast. Sorry about that. Gonna get rid of some of this stuff. Okay. I always jinx myself, my goodness. Okay, so we get, there we go. I think we're going right now. Always reduce your fractions when you're done. Oh my goodness. There we go. So -17/3 is an answer. Try a couple more here. Now I'm worried I'm going to copy it all wrong. You get negative 31 as an answer there. So a few more here. They're definitely going to get wacky, and this whole subbing in with brackets is probably getting to be more important in addition to the copying correctly. So every time you see a letter, you're going to sub it in with brackets. And if you're having trouble with it, you can put those brackets in and then go and fill them in. Sometimes that works for people to kind of process this information. And then it's a matter of order of operations. A few more. The spacing in this section of notes is terrible. Sorry about that. So every time I see a letter, I put in those brackets and then I just fill it in with what the instructions say. You can see when I subbed in this P with brackets, I'm going to take and square -4. So that's -4 times -4, which is 2 times a positive 16 then, plus 3. So that's 32 plus 3, or 35 as an answer. C really doesn't have enough space. I'm just going to rewrite it over here. So I've got P and Q plus R. So when I have a P, that's a -4, subbed in with brackets, a Q, a lot of wacky brackets, which is a +3, and an R, which is a -2. Okay, so then you have to do what's in the brackets. So we get 1 times -4, so I get a final answer of -4 on that one. So these last two here are definitely a tricky concept. I'm actually going to give you the answers and then show you how to get there. So these are the answers, and I'd like you to give it a try, and then we can discuss how you get to those answers. I'm going to show the next thing I'm going to show is subbing in with brackets. So everywhere there's a letter, I'm putting those brackets in, and then I fill in that value. So Q is a +3. Now hopefully I can make some sense as I talk through this. So this is 3 squared, which is 9, and the negative of it, so -9 on the top here. On the bottom, I have -3 inside those brackets because you do those brackets first, then the exponent. So that's -3 times -3. And -3 times a -3 is a +9. So you can see this tip of subbing in with brackets can really make a difference. So there's one more. Nothing too tricky in these ones, but just to reiterate, maybe you hadn't been subbing in with brackets until we had those last ones where all of a sudden it was like the absolute key to it, right? So maybe this is the time you're actually following my suggestion and subbing in with brackets. I know that a lot of us are resistant. As soon as somebody tells me that I have to do something a certain way, I instantly just don't want to do it that way. I don't think I'm super contrary, but I think we're all human, and sometimes that happens. So the first one, I get a -2. And then following along, subbing in with brackets. And then simplifying top before and bottom before I do that division bit. Strangely get the same answer, -2, in both cases on those last examples in 1.5.